Paula Schaefer, designer for Antiques Beads, and I'll be demonstrating how to make a Kumihimo wrap bracelet in a polka dot pattern. What we're going to be using today is a waxed cord, and I'm also going to be doing the Kumihimo on the foam disc. And you will also need a button and a jump ring. You'll need something to use as a weight. And since we're using so much cord, you'll probably need to use some bobbins. And you'll need some Zap-A-Gap, a pair of scissors, or a nipper tool. I'm going to show a sample of the pattern that I'm going to be creating. I'm going to be predominantly using the turquoise and create little polka dots with the tan and the brown in this waxed cord. And for purposes of just showing you how to load the disc, I'm not going to use the quantity that I need to make the bracelet, but I will go over that. If I want to make a wrap bracelet, and I want it to wrap 3 times around my wrist, I'm just going to use, for instance, a 7-inch bracelet. So 7 times 3 would be 21 inches. And for the turquoise color, I'm going to double these strands. So I would use 42 inches of the turquoise, and that's going to give me 6 warp threads in the turquoise color. However, for the polka dots, I'm going to use a brown and a tan. So I'm going to use a 21-inch piece of the black and a 21-inch piece of the tan. And this is how we're going to use these. We're going to tie these 2 pieces together in a knot, square knot, preferably. And then I'm going to load the disc with these and show you how this is going to work. So a square knot is right over left, left over right. This little square is going to be our center. Okay, and then what we're going to do is, just like we've loaded in the first video, we're using 8 warp threads. And again, I'm using waxed cotton cording here instead of the rat tail this time. And you're going to find your center. And I'm also not adding the weight to this one at this time, just for the demonstration purposes of how to load this. But you would have a weight here in the middle, and then you would run this up through the center of your disc. And then I'm going to load the tan and the black right across from each other. I'm going to start at the 24 and the 8 for the tan and the black. You can start in order if you like, but I'm also going to place them on opposite sides. I'm on the right hand side of the 24, and I'm going to do the same on the right hand side of the 8. Then for the turquoise, I'm going to do the same as we would on either side of the 32 at the top. I'm going to go down at the bottom, 16, and then also I'm going to fill in where we don't, next to the tan and next to the black. Oops. And again, if you have this with a weight in the center, all this will stay in place and you can straighten your threads up. I've got these twisted, so I'm going to take them apart, put them out here. Now, to remember your patterns when you're doing things like this, which is often once you get started, you don't remember necessarily where you started. So it's always a good idea to chart. If you have a certain pattern that you end up with certain colors that you have, it's always a good idea to chart on a piece of paper where you have your colors placed on the disc, so that you'll know if you want to repeat this pattern, how to do it again. Once you have your disc centered, loaded, and you have your weight connected to it, this one I've obviously already worked on, and it's pretty long, but these little bobbins, I wanted to show you how great these are to wrap your excess cord around, and then they just close like this, and they make this much easier to keep all this from tangling. And I do suggest keeping it really close to the disc to keep them from getting tangled up. And as you work your threads, you just pull them and they roll right out as you move on to your next cord. Now again, just to show you how I've got my pattern set up here, the brown and the black, the turquoise on either side and the turquoise here, and I've created this pattern, and I will go through a couple of the steps here and show you how, again, to remind you how to do the Kumihimo. And you go from your top left to your bottom, and then up, and you go counterclockwise. And you do this for the duration of your piece until you get about the length that you're going to want for a wrap bracelet. And again, you would have this off the surface with your weight hanging down, and that's going to pull this. As I said, I've already got this completed, and you can see how the pattern has come out. And just as you do in the first Kumihimo we did, we're just going to glue some Zap-A-Gap the center threads here, a couple of drops of glue on here, and I'm going to show you how to do this. We're not going to cut these cords, so I'm just going to glue those, and we're going to leave the cords long. So I'm going to pull them off the disc. Let me set this aside. In this case, what we're going to do, and before that glue gets really set too hard, I'm going to pull it up like this. What we're going to do here is just make an overhand knot at the end of the cord where all of them are together. And if you need at this point, you can pull these off or just unwind the rest of your thread. And we're going to create a buttonhole closure out of this end, so that's why we're not going to cut any of these threads quite yet, but we will trim them off. This would also be, other than, in fact, I'm doing this as a wrap bracelet, this would also be the weight you would do to make a piece longer for a necklace, if you wanted it to be a full piece. Okay, now that I've got it all undone here, what I'm going to do now is just, as I said, we're going to tie an overhand knot. And I want my overhand knot to be pretty close to where I've glued my ends together, so this is a little loose. I'm just going to make adjustments to it till I can get it down on top of there. Now I've got my knot, and I've got it good and tight. Then what we're going to do is we're going to create, like I said, kind of a buttonhole. And what I'm doing is I'm going to separate my threads. I'm going to keep the polka dotted colors separate, and then the turquoise. I'm going to kind of create. And I want the loop to be large enough that my buttonhole is going to slip through it, but not come off. So you're just going to eyeball it. You can make adjustments to it. And then we're going to tie in another overhand knot. Okay, now that I've got the overhand knot tied here, but I don't want to tighten it up too much because I want to be able to test the button that we're going to add to the end. So right here on the end, as you can see, our little knot that we had for the two colors that we tied together is here at the end, and also the jump ring for the weight. So I'm just going to open this jump ring and slip it out. Except for my thread stayed in there. That's funny. Okay. Well, in this case, I'm going to snip my thread. Don't know how that happened, but oh well. And then I am, just for good measure, going to put a little drop of Zap-A-Gap on this knot where I had connected my two pieces, just to make sure it stays together. And you can trim any little excess fray that you've got there. So now we're going to add the button. Got the jump ring through, and we're going to add the button. Just going to slip it on. We're going to close this jump ring. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to test. I'm going to test my buttonhole that I have created with the 2 knots here. And once you've worn it a couple of times and slid this button in and out, you'll have kind of a separation between those threads. And I'm just going to slide it, make sure that it's a good fit. And if I think I need to tighten it up a little bit, which I do, feel like I need to do, I'm just going to release this knot a little bit. That's why I didn't want to make this knot too tight before I tested it. I'm just going to open up the knot just slightly, bring it down a little bit, and test it again. You want this to be a nice tight fit, but not so that you can't get it on and off. And I think that's going to work. And then you can trim the ends of your cord to however long you like them. And I would probably dab a little glue on the ends of those to keep them from fraying. And then this is just going to wrap around your wrist 3 times. And you've created a Kumihimo wrap style bracelet.